In today's episode of Getting Geeky with Game Relief, I sit down with Bobby from the Board Game Club to talk about This Game is a Disaster. Let's see if it really is. Then we'll see what's on Kickstarter on the other side of this interview.
Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf, the podcast in which one man strives to level up his geekhood and helping you do the same, one battle at a time. Now, let's get geeky with Gamer Leaf.
Floods, blizzards, war, climate change, political unrest. Let's face it, this planet sorta sucks. So let's stop fighting it and just accept it. This is a disaster.
Did that sound familiar to you guys? It didn't to me either, but this is the story of This Game is a Disaster, and today we're lucky enough to have on the creator mastermind behind that game, Bobby from the Board Game Club. Is that right, Bobby? Is that how you fall in line with This Game is a Disaster?
That's it, Lake. How you doing?
Not too bad. Thank you so much for joining us on Getting Geeky with Game Relief. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Now, before we jump into your game to see how bad of a disaster it is or what it is exactly, let's rewind a little bit if we could. How did you get into playing tabletop board games, Bobby?
It was my roommate back probably about 10 or 15 years ago. It's been a long time now. I think of the first game that he really got me into was Last Night on Earth. And if I were to rewind back further to high school, I played Magic the Gathering and Warhammer and games like that, Dungeons and Dragons. But then college and early 20s, I kind of took a break and tried real life for a little bit. But the geekiness pulled me back in. And so Last Night on Earth, a zombie game that was like right before zombies got real big, and there it was just Catan and Carcassonne, the typical gateway games, and I just never slowed down since.
Well, there you go. I guess you didn't like real life as much?
Yeah, it's really overrated. Sports and, work and stuff. I always come back to, living in a fantasy and sci-fi, so it's better that way.
Yeah, it's better that way. Yeah, a little more fun. My wife says anything better with dragons.
Yep, can't go wrong.
So there you go. That's pretty cool to hear. What are you playing these days, Bobby?
Mostly I just play things that I could get done at work. So it has to be under an hour. So like we'll play early or small games of Hogwarts Battle, co-op games. A lot of times if I'm playing with my kid too, we play a lot of co-op games like Pandemic or Forbidden Island, just because he starts crying if he loses. So we got to do co-op. So that's mostly. I would like to do some heavier games. I have Pandemic Legacy Season 2 sitting on my shelf, unwrapped but unplayed so far. So I'm just trying to get on my group to actually get their schedules together so we can get going.
Well, better than us. Our Pandemic, I think the actual first Pandemic is still on our shelf. It might be unwrapped and open, but we have yet to get it to the table.
Oh, it's so good. You got to go through it. It's great.
There you go. Awesome. Yeah, we kind of had a different experience with the co-op. We didn't know what hobby gaming was when our kids were young and would leave the table, get mad at playing games. We did Uno or whatnot. And yeah, we had a lot of table flipping if they could get the table up and whatnot.
Nice.
But awesome. But word on the street is you have a new game on Kickstarter. What can you tell us about This Game is a Disaster? Is it really a disaster?
It's not as much of a disaster as I thought, because it's my first game. It's my partner's first games, and so we went in with very low expectations, and part of the naming was to kind of cover our bases, because if it was a horrible game, then we could always say, well, it says so right on the box, so you can't blame us. You're the one who bought this. But actually the name and a lot of the artwork and that sort of thing was come up with from my Facebook group. I think you might have mentioned it, the Board Game Club, which is about like a 4,000 member Facebook group, and some people get confused because they think it might be a local club, but it's not. It's just like any other online group on Facebook, and we just chat about, post memes, and just love board games all day. And so what I did, I put that together about a year ago. Not really sure what to do with it. I just wanted to just be more involved with board games because I wasn't playing as much as I'd like. And it's sort of in the back of my mind. Maybe I'll review games, or maybe someday I'll make a game. I didn't really know. But then a few months later, a guy I work with actually, was starting to get into the group, and he was saying, "Hey, I was a game designer in college, and I have some games. Like, why don't we put a game together?" So it just kind of presented itself, and it just worked itself out. And as I mentioned, I leaned on the board game club a lot for helping to play test, helping to promote. They helped name it and pick the theme, and just all on the way. I was posting videos showing where I was at, what was going on, and just getting that feedback, getting that help. And it's been a huge resource for me. So I wouldn't do it any other way. Anyone who hasn't made a game yet, I would suggest go that route first. It takes a village sort of approach.
Yeah, and I want to say in your video or that audio we heard up front, you can made it even so you could blame the club if it doesn't work out that well.
Yeah, I mean, I like to blame anyone else I can if possible. I was talking with Richard Bliss. I think you heard that podcast. As a software engineer, that's my day job. We're really a lazy bunch, and so like if we could just try to come up with some code that makes our lives easier, or shift some responsibility, or blame, we'll always do that. So that was kind of my thinking, and it's sort of tongue in cheek. It's all in good fun. We like to have fun in the board game club.
Well, there you go. Yeah, fun's always good. So, say me and you sat down to have some fun with This Game Is a Disaster. What's my turn going to look like, Bobby?
It'd be a pretty big mess. So the game itself it's sort of a disaster movie theme. We pretty much took every disaster that you could imagine from those movies from the 90s and early 2000s. We're talking, deep impact meteors and global warming and Sharknadoes and just like everything, tornadoes, Twister, all that stuff. Everything just like crammed into one game, and it's all happening at once. And so you start out by splitting the deck up by how many players there are, between 2 and 6, and you have a hand. And each turn you're just playing cards that are just smashing each other. It's very much take that. It's not a friendly Euro at all. And when you knock someone out, when they have no more cards in their hands or in their deck or in the discard pile or anything, they're just out of the game. And you just keep doing that, just keep hammering each other. And the interesting mechanic is there's a central discard pile where you kind of destroy each other's hands to, and sometimes you can get stuff back from it. So you sort of share that discard pile as well, and that sort of represents in disaster movies where the Will Smith's wife is dead and comes, or he thinks she's dead, but it turns out he heard wrong news, or that sort of thing. People that you thought were dead come back, or a new hero shows up and saves the day. And, so we tried to make it very tropey. Those sort of things that you're familiar with are very clear in a tongue-in-cheek sort of way, and This Game Is a Disaster.
Okay, and I don't know if I'm getting the right idea or not, but I'm thinking of War, something similar to War when I was a kid, but it does not based on the numbers, but the cards have actually abilities, and they're based on the disaster, and you're trying to annihilate each other. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that because we just got interviewed by a local PBS affiliate, and Ben, who's my partner, who came up with the game, he started with War as the basic mechanics for the game, because he was in a game development class, and it was they just wanted to come up with a simple game, and so he's like, well, okay, everybody knows how to play War, and he just built it from that. And it's obviously more complicated. That every card has an ability. Might say like Tsunami is destroy a target opponent's entire hand, and it's just like gone. Or Twister, destroy 2 cards at random from an opponent and 1 card from your hand. So there's a lot of cards that, besides destroying each other, there's shuffling hands together and passing hands to the left, and retrieving cards from the discard. There's like all sorts of stuff going on. It's like a sort of a chaotic sort of game. And it's meant to be like a filler sort of game, like Flux, where you would expect it's just kind of, it's just a little nuts, and you can't take it too seriously, but it's fun.
It sounds fun. Now, how did you know when it was ready to go to Kickstarter?
My philosophy with that was to set a date and just do everything I could to get it by that date. And that date was June 1st, and we were not ready June 1st. But I still liked the idea of setting the date because it at least got me frantically doing things to try to make it happen. If I had not set that date, we'd probably still be planning and still be playtesting. So we ended up getting it June 26th, I believe, was our first day. And we just our Kickstarter page wasn't completely complete, and we're still working on it, still adding things, but we funded right away. We blew past our funding. We're well past it now, and starting to get in that stretch goal phase. So my advice to first time designers would be just push yourself to try to get it out there, because I talked to some people and they're 5 years, 10 years still working on their first game. And I think a good game shipped is better than a perfect game that never happens. So
Well, there you go. Yeah, that's pretty good. I work better under deadlines as well, so I completely agree with you. So that's awesome. Now, let's see. Sorry, give me one sec. Okay, so recently Kickstarter came out with some guidelines or whatnot, if I recall correctly, and they said like lower funding goals if you can't create the project, don't do those kind of goals. So with $500, you would be able to make the game. What can you tell us about that low goal?
yeah, so what we did was we pretty much tried to keep our costs as low as possible, especially on the art and the marketing. I've been spending some money on marketing now with Facebook ads. I'm testing things out. It still hasn't paid for itself yet, but for me, this whole thing's been a learning experience, so I don't mind, especially since we have so much profit. We could start to play with some things. We could try to think like, okay, let's see if this makes sense and this doesn't. Um, but in general, I see some people, they do previews for like $500, $750, and I just think that's the wrong approach for your first game. If you know that you have a game that's gonna fund, and you know that getting it out to Tantrum House or something is gonna get a lot of eyeballs on it, it's gonna pay for it, then go for it. But I like to keep my costs low, at least on this first game. And what we did was we used the Game Crafter and figured out that for 50, 60 people, if we can get that many backers, then our game would work and we could ship it. And then if there are more, then we could start thinking about a profit. And that profit is pretty slim for us. It's maybe $1 or $2 at this point. But if it gets to a certain scale, then we could start thinking about China, and then we could start thinking about actually making money. So we're just gonna see. We're gonna see where it goes.
Okay, so scaling up, like starting with the Game Crafter, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, we figure we'll go with the Game Crafter up to a certain level, and then if it gets closer to 500 backers, I'm not sure where we are right now.
150 is what I'm seeing at the time of this recording.
Yeah, right around 150. So I mean, we would need, like, if we had twice as many backers, which of course is possible. There's still something like almost 20 days left. Then we could start thinking about the scale and going into China and that sort of thing, which obviously is a lot more work too. So we just have to figure that out once we see what it actually shakes out to at the end.
Awesome, and I know some people do previews and reviews for not the huge amounts of money and stuff that you had talked about. Some of them do them for free, if I recall. Was there any of that, or did you get any previews or anything?
Yeah, we got a few reviews, and like I said, at first we were thinking about paying for some reviews, but when we saw what our funding goal was, and basically the amount it cost to ship a game to somebody, because we were using the Game Crafter, is fairly expensive. It costs like $20 to ship a deck to somebody, and we figure we would need like very like many purchases off that to justify it. We had plenty of people that were willing to review it for free using Print and Play or using Tabletop Simulator, just some software like Tabletopia, and that worked for us because we just wanted a few reviews, we wanted some quotes, and to kind of fill out the page, and that seemed like it worked.
Oh, okay, so that's good that it was able to work and stuff. And like you said, you blew past your funding goal quite soon.
Actually, we started at midnight and then went to bed, and then there was something like 8 pledges by the time we woke up. So, and then by lunchtime it was done. So had we started, at 8 a.m. instead of midnight, it probably would have been even sooner. But 12 hours is fine by us. Which I guess I should give. It's you could see it at thisgameisaddisaster.com, or just search it on Kicktrack or Kickstarter, any of those.
Well, there you go. Yeah, for sure. Most definitely. Now, when it comes to This Game Is a Disaster, what makes your game pop as one my audience should go check out? And if they like what they see, back it on Kickstarter today.
You can take a look at the artwork. You can see it's very, I'd say it's almost like comedy horror, but it's like disaster horror. Like the most similar thing would be Sharknado. Like it's gruesome, but it's also like very silly. So the theme people love. I noticed kids love it. Like my 6-year-old loves it, and I've had some people who've played with their kids and they love it too, especially boys. And it's just it's just a filler game, fun, silly, like bash it out. You're not gonna like play 20 games in a row, but you might like do 2 or 3 in between, Pandemic and Agricola or something like that. So that's where it shines, and it's just having fun, just lighten the mood, especially if you just played something heavy. So that's the case that I see it fitting in people's shelves.
And it looks like it's a very low cost, $13. Is that with shipping, or does it cost shipping on top of that?
There's a few dollars shipping on top of it. It's subsidized in the U.S. I think it's $2 or $3, and then if you're farther afield, it's more. But yeah, that's pretty much. We wanted to try to keep the price low, keep it close to an impulse purchase.
Okay, so that's always good. So, and we'll make sure we leave all the links in the show notes so they can go ahead and click on over. Now, really quickly, so the board game club, that's different from because I didn't know about it until I saw Richard Bliss's video, or maybe I accidentally joined it at one point or another, but I didn't know anything about it. I was big into the board game group, and there's like board game exposure and whatnot. So, what's been your experience with the whole club and everything?
Yeah, mainly what we were looking to do there, the people that mostly my friends joined at first, but then the sort of the personality that grew over time was to make it less about hardcore details of gaming and more about community, just kind of getting to know each other, seeing what each other are playing, make it a very positive, non-confrontational place. We try to quickly shut down any conversations that dip into politics, because even though a lot of us have very strong opinions on politics, it's just not the place for it. You could find people of all political persuasions that you maybe disagree with them on a lot of things, but when it comes to board games, you could still have fun. We wanted a place that was, very like tolerant and good, like especially and welcoming to women, and just not a place to argue, not a place to get too hardcore about rules and things like that. So I think people appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. You can find it on Facebook, searching groups under Board Game Club.
And does it ever get into spam? Like I created a group for my podcast and whatnot, and a lot of them I noticed they're like everybody just sharing their projects or what they have going on, and it seems like a lot of the groups that I'm in have turned into spam. Everybody telling you about their game, and it gets kind of overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean they try, but I put clearly in the post that it's a no spam group. Every once in a while we'll do a post and we'll say, hey everybody, if you want to post links to your Kickstarter, post links to your review channel or whatever, put it in this post, and that kind of keeps it contained. We just have one of those every few weeks. Otherwise, you're right, it would just be post after post. Hey, check out not even my channel, but hey, just check out like this new podcast I dropped, and then that would be every day or every other day, and then pretty soon there'd be nothing else, nothing of value. So obviously, I promote my own Kickstarter, but we will promote other people's pages or Kickstarters if they do something specifically for the group. Like if they do a giveaway for the group, that's something that we'll let them do that, just because it is for the overall benefit of the group.
Okay, so that's pretty cool, awesome. Now, so somebody doesn't have to come to your hometown to stalk you. How would they keep up with you?
Sure. Well, the Board Game Club is a good place where I pretty much post all my updates. That's again, Board Game Club. You can actually, we have a website, theboardgameclub.com, and from there you could click on group or community or wherever the link is, and that'll bring you also, or search on Facebook. If you want to get in touch with me, thisgameisadisaster.com. That leads to the Kickstarter page right now, and comments there are welcome as well, or messaging me there. And anywhere else, I mean, those are pretty much the main places. I'm Bobby Fiorentino. So if you just find me in any of those places, that's me, and send me a message.
And like I said, we'll make sure we go ahead and get those links into the show notes if you get those links to me. So we'll do that for you. Now, I know right now we're focused on getting. Well, are we focused on stretch goals, or what's going on with that? Is there a lot of stretch goals?
There are not a lot of stretch goals. One just passed $2,500 for improved quality, and the next one's going to be at $5,000. And I'm getting some feedback now from the backers, so it might not be public yet, but on what we want to do for the next level. And we're pretty much deciding between improving the quality of the box or adding more cards or different variants, artworks. So those are the things that we're thinking right now, and the next few goals will probably be along those lines.
Okay, there you go. So you can follow along, jump over and back to Kickstarter if it's something that looks like it'd be fun for you guys to play. So somebody's listening later on down the road after your Kickstarter's finished or whatnot. What are your plans with the club and other games you might be working on?
Well, the board game club that'll always be around as long as Facebook allows it. That'll just always be a fun place to hang out, talk about your games, say what you're playing, ask questions, that sort of thing, live stream. And then in terms of the future, I would like to work on a heavier game for sure. And I would also like to try to start helping other people make their own games, because there are a lot of people in the board game club who either want to make a game or are in the middle of making a game. And it wasn't until I was talking on another podcast that the guy was so surprised that I actually followed his advice. And I guess a lot of people have trouble implementing these things. It's not easy to make a board game. And so anything I could do to help people, that's something I'm very interested in.
Okay, and I'm a big sucker for podcasts. Whose podcast was it?
That was Richard Bliss. You might have heard that.
Okay, yeah, I heard that one. Okay.
Right. If you remember, he was it's Funding the Dream podcast, and he was sort of delighted and shocked that I actually, when I told him what I did with making the community and then making a small game and having a small goal, he was like amazed that happened. And I was like, but you told me to do it in your podcasts and in your lynda.com course and all this stuff. And his response was pretty much like, yeah, but I mean, nobody, not that many people actually follow through with it. So that's something that's really interesting to me. That since he said that got me thinking about why that is. And I think that a lot of people just don't have a roadmap and don't have maybe like the step by step and the motivation. I think there's almost like too much information out there, and it needs to be sort of simplified and streamlined. So that's something I'd like to work on. Try to get some people in the board game club or elsewhere, help them make their own games.
Yeah, that'd be good. Like a lot of times, I am seeing a lot of people come on Kickstarter that, what do you call it? They don't necessarily know everything that's in the industry. Like if they're not plugged into the industry or whatnot, they go ahead and launch a Kickstarter and they don't know what's going on. So something like that, where a resource where they could get help or whatnot, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it seems like there's like two sort of extremes. There's someone who just slapped a game together with their kid, and it's they have like a paper prototype, and they have a funding goal of $50,000, and they have no followers. That's like one end of the extreme. And then the other end is someone who has been dreaming of a game for like 10 years, and they know what it's called, and they've spent $5,000 on art. And this is like this is an example of an actual story. I know of someone like this. And then there's just, they never kind of pull the trigger on it. So those are like two extremes that I'd like to kind of navigate between and try to make it easier for people. Try to shed some light on a better way.
No, that's good as well. Yeah, I try to do that where I can as well. Like even if they don't end up coming on my show or working with me in some faucet or whatnot, I give them different suggestions or whatnot. So that's good that you're willing to do that, because a lot of them don't even know what's going on, like you said, unfortunately. Yeah, most definitely. Now, like I said, we don't want to keep you all night, but we really appreciate you coming on Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf with us tonight, Bobby, to talk all about This Game is a Disaster. We really appreciate it. Wow, that was a great interview with Bobby. Now I'm excited to play this game. Interesting how they came up with it. If you're excited too, make sure you go ahead and jump on over to check out their Kickstarter and back it so we can keep on bringing great games to Getting Geeky with Gamer Leaf. Now let's go with Bad Arena Leaf. Where are we going, Bad Arena Leaf?
Kickstarter Corner!
Casual Game Insider magazine is now on Kickstarter for its 8th year. Get great deals on annual and lifetime subscriptions, back issues, and advertising. Each issue now features a free game to play and enjoy. Casual Game Insider has been receiving high praise from gaming media since the first issue in 2012. It has been called the best board gaming magazine on the market by several reviewers, a magazine that is serious about quality. By Purple Pawn, and a great resource and fun read by the Spiel podcast. Bezier Games has praised its super accessible format that's both welcoming and engaging. And Ultra Pro says the paper quality and production quality are just flat out better than most publications in tabletop. Find out what all the hype is about at casualgamerevolution.com/Kickstarter. If you liked any of the games we talked about in today's episode, make sure you check out their Kickstarter campaigns to show them and us a little love. Backing them goes a long way. Plus, make sure to stay up to date on all the giveaways we're doing over at thegiveawaygeek.com. There will be at least 2 to 3 new giveaways going live over there next week. It's our least favorite time as well as yours, so until next episode, make sure you go ahead and get geeky, stay geeky, and bring others in the geekfold by sharing our episodes with others, as well as keeping up with the giveaways we're doing over at thegiveawaygeek.com. Gamer Leaf out.
Gamer Leaf levels up. Tune in next week to see if Gamer Leaf's luck holds up.